Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English channel. In our today's video, we are going to understand why do spacecraft, when they return back from space, why do they land on water as compared to landing on a tarmac or an airstrip just like a normal aircraft. Well, by the way, this term landing is not used here. The official term to highlight this kind of a coming back on Earth is called as splashdown. So we'll try to understand why this happens as against landing like a normal aircraft in our today's video. But first, let me give you the context why are we discussing this phenomena. This is because India's first traveler to the International Space Station, Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, along with his 3 co-travelers, they reached back Earth just right off the coast of California in the Pacific Ocean. So he was rescued back again by the SpaceX team who were there deployed there just to make their rescue. Now this brings my curiosity to understand why do we need to bring these spacecrafts down in a water body as against landing them like a normal aircraft. So let us understand what are the reasons behind it. Okay, now first reason, or before getting into reason, if you want to download the notes, these will be available on the Telegram channel known as ATS Live. So you can go open your Telegram app. On the top right hand corner there's a search bar, click on it and write ATS Live, you'll find the channel. But if you still have problems in locating it, you can scan this QR code and you'll definitely find the channel. Subscribe it if you still haven't, and you can download the notes. Let us now understand why do these spacecrafts are splashing down on water rather than landing. Now, first of all, this process is quite simple and safe because once they reach very close to the surface, their speed at that time is about 25 to 30 kilometers an hour. So to require them or to land them vertically, you'd require a large part of engineering with having a complex systems consisting of radars and sensors which would enable them the same. So it is rather very simple for the space organizations to rather enable these spacecrafts to splash down on a water body rather than going for a more complex vertical landing. Also, another aspect is the quality of water. First of all, you need to understand water has very low viscosity and a very high density. So you can actually enable water to absorb the shock that comes from the landing of any body. So this water plays a very important role in absorbing the shock. Now let us assume if you were to enable this spacecraft to land on a land. So what would happen is that when this spacecraft would actually reach Earth, it would subject the entire spacecraft along with its occupant to a large amount of force, which can be detrimental if the speed is somewhat greater than 30 kilometers an hour. So rather than, what we do is enable them to land on water, which allows the water to absorb the shock and make no damages to the structure of the spacecraft or to the occupants. Right. So it helps absorb the impact and also protect the crew and spacecraft from any adverse effect. Another aspect is that oceans are a large body of water which has minimal or no presence of humans or human-made structure. So what if the trajectory of the spacecraft goes few meters or few kilometers away from what is intended? It is actually safe for them to land in any piece of water rather than opting to land on a land. Therefore, it provides no obstacle and therefore it reduces the risk of collision even in the case if the aircraft or the spacecraft goes slightly off course, right? Similarly, the design of the spacecraft, as you'd understand, it is conical in design, which has a very large piece of hull. Now, this large bottom piece, which you can't see in this image, it actually just acts like a floating ship. So this structure design, it enables the spacecraft to continue floating on water. So even if the rescue is delayed, they or the occupants of these spacecrafts will not get submerged into water because of the design of these spacecraft, right? So it is the buoyant design of this spacecraft that is conical in nature. It allows the spacecraft to float on water, and therefore the rounded base that you can't see in the hull, it acts like a hull of ship. So basically all these features put together makes it much safer for the space organizations to let these spacecraft splash down on water rather than attempting a landing, right? Now what you need to understand is that how these splashdown are executed in real time. First of all, whenever this spacecraft is coming from other planets or even from International Space Station, the first interaction the spacecraft has is with the atmosphere of the Earth. So it begins at the altitude of 110 to 120 kilometers above sea level, right? Now, when these spacecrafts are traveling at that time, they're traveling almost with the speed of more than 27,000 kilometers an hour. So as soon as this spacecraft interacts with Earth's atmosphere, it faces a friction which enables it to reduce its speed with the phenomenon of deceleration, right? So this is where the deceleration or gradual reduction of speed of the spacecraft starts when it starts to interact with the Earth's atmosphere. After it enters into Earth's atmosphere, its first drogue parachute is deployed, and afterward 4 main parachutes are deployed, which allows the spacecraft to stabilize and slow down the speed further to what is intended to land, that is about 25 to 30 kilometers an hour before they can splash down. Now, this spacecraft does not approach the water body or Earth vertically, rather it comes at a certain angle, and because of this angle, it allows the spacecraft to glide at an angle and not splash down at a straight, and therefore after entering into the Earth's atmosphere, these spacecraft essentially travel 5,000 to 7,000 kilometers before getting splashed down in water. So this descent angle allows the space authorities to designate the position of landing and accurately determine where the spacecraft would land, and land at a very low speed of about 25 to 30 kilometers, which puts no risk to the spacecraft as well as its occupants, right? So this is how the process of splashdown works. Now let us understand why don't these spacecrafts land on runways just like a normal aircraft. First of all, to enable a horizontal landing just like a normal aircraft, you need sophisticated softwares and hardwares, basically called as avionics. Also, you need to have these spacecrafts with a sense of braking system that allows any runway landing to successfully get completed. Now, to incorporate all these systems into a spacecraft, first of all, it's quite costly, and also these spacecrafts, their primary intention is to ensure survival of life in extreme space-like conditions for the humans. So when you enable extra design, it will add to the weight and also it will add to the complexity. So not just saving cost is one of the reasons, but they require precision navigation in case of horizontal landing and requires additional softwares and hardwares. Therefore, these are prevented to make the systems which are already complex more and more less complex, right? So therefore, to reduce the complexity, to reduce the weight, to reduce the cost, we do not enable horizontal landing in these spacecrafts. Rather, we have a most cost effective, a more safer approach to let these spacecrafts splash down on water. Although there have been some spacecrafts like the space shuttle of the NASA, which were used or which had the capability to land like a normal aircraft, but you understand these were very complex systems. Although these were very high-tech systems, but their life was only certain, right? So therefore, to reduce the cost, as you can understand, most of the agencies, they want to reduce the cost to travel to space, and also to make these systems which are already complex less complex, they do not enable horizontal landing. Similarly, even the ISRO, which is planning to send its astronauts using the Gaganyaan mission, the crew module is also following the same design as the SpaceX module, which carried Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla into space. And this Gaganyaan crew module, after completion of its mission, it will also land or splash down at sea before being rescued by the ships of Indian Navy. Therefore, ISRO wants to follow the international practice by enabling these spacecrafts to splash down on water, ensuring crew safety and ensuring effective recovery of the spacecraft by the Indian Navy. So this is how, because it is more safer, it is less complex, and it can be manufactured at a less cost. Therefore, the splashdown technique of spacecrafts are a much better alternative as against landing like a normal aircraft, right? Now, before completion of our today's discussion, I have something I wanted to let you know. You can download the notes, as I've already told you, on the Telegram channel. But before that, you also need to understand that we are offering courses for not just 2026, but also long-term courses for 27 and 28. Especially the students who are looking to give exams later on, or the working professionals who do not have adequate amount of time to prepare for next year's exam, you can obviously take admissions to our long-term courses for 27 and 28. You can go to our website, select English only batches, because here we provide teaching exclusively in English, and enter the code ATS live because it helps you save a lot of money. You can decide on the batches accordingly. If you still feel confused, do not hesitate us to call on the number 9240231070. Our counselors, they'll help you out and will let you pick the course that suits you the best. Please do not forget them to let them know the code ATS Live because it helps you save money, right? Now, the notes, as usual, they will be available on the Telegram channel ATS Live. So go to this Telegram channel, subscribe it if you still haven't, and you can download the notes. We'll see each other again. Please have a very good day.